Beside the crimson water river, the makeshift shipyard was bustling with people. Today, Roland led everyone to witness the launch of the new ship. The workers tore down the wooden shed facing the river, revealing a gray hull. It slid down the riverbank and plunged into the waters. Everyone had expected such a massive object to sink instantly, but instead, the ship floated gracefully. Some of the townsfolk knew that this new ship had been constructed in just a couple weeks. Furthermore, His Highness was currently recruiting a captain and crew members. Nightingale didn't understand why Roland would reveal his newest ship. Roland explained that it was a display of military strength. Nightingale was still puzzled. Roland continued, saying it was to let everyone witness the monumental transformation of their town. Many probably had never seen a stone ship that could float. He hoped it would instill a deeper sense of belonging among the townspeople. Kakuzum was completely fixated on the new ship. Even for a basic sailing vessel, the crafting of the ribs alone would take over a month, not to mention waiting for the timber to dry completely. It seemed impossible to make a ship in just a couple of weeks. Wade glanced at Kakuzum, asking why he was so familiar with ships. Turned out, many years ago Kakuzum had been a captain, navigating between various kingdoms. It was only due to some unexpected misfortunes that he had ended up like this. As Kakuzum watched this miraculous ship, he pondered, within 2 years, His Highness would likely fill every river within Grey Castle with ships like this. After some thought, he decided he might as well apply for the position of captain. Out in the hidden forest, Leaf gracefully navigated between the forest searching for Lightning and Maisie. Ever since her abilities evolved, she had turned her attention to the hidden forest on the town's west side. To avoid losing her senses, she cautiously expanded her ability, starting from the western city wall. Each day, she merged a little more. One day she will be able to cover the entire hidden forest. Maisie and Lightning were on the trail of a wild boar. Leaf appeared from the tree trunk, startling the two girls. Almost as if they were speaking to a ghost. Maisie landed directly on Leaf's back, pacing a couple of steps, and even pecked where Leaf's body connected with the tree trunk. Leaf felt ticklish and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Perhaps sensing nearby presences, the wild boar took off in a run, and Leaf signaled the two girls to follow her. Unable to maintain a human form while moving, Leaf let vines sprout from the ground to guide the girl and the bird forward. Before them, a massive boar crouched by the stream, drinking the icy water. Its tusks were thick and sharp. Lightning drew her dagger, and in the blink of an eye, she shimmered like a golden flash, swooping down onto the boar from behind. Against Lightning's aerial advantage, the wild boar was too clumsy. It wasn't long before it lost its ability to resist, collapsing onto the snow. Leaf manipulated the vines to wrap around the boar's hind legs, hoisting it up and started draining its blood. She remembers that His Highness mentioned that meat without bloodstains tastes better. Leaf suddenly sensed more creatures intruding into the forest. Directing her gaze to the edge of her control zone, she saw 2 gray wolves approaching. Something felt off. She knew that such beasts usually roamed deep within the forest. Even in winter, they rarely ventured so close to the town's outskirts. Suddenly, a familiar silhouette appeared before her, making the hairs on her skin stand on end. The brutal battles she had experienced in the wastelands flashed through her mind. She saw 2 hulking demons slowly advancing towards the city walls. Their arms bore no magic stones, and they carried no spears on their backs, seemingly unarmed. However, Leaf noticed black iron gauntlets on their hands, the very weapons that had killed her comrades. With a deep sense of dread and unease, she urged the 2 girls to flee immediately. Briefly describing what she had seen, she cried out loud, "Go now!" Leaf told the 2 girls that the demons had no mounts, and won't catch up to them. Unexpectedly, Lightning hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. She wants to stay and fight them. Leaf asked her why. Lightning took a deep breath and then replied, if they flee upon meeting the enemy now, how will they ever defeat them in the future? The young girl drew a handgun from her waist. She remembered what her father once said, "Where you fall is where you rise." And she will not run away again. Lightning inspected the chambers of her pistol, ensuring every slot was loaded with bullets. She knew demons could be killed, their greatest weakness was their reliance on the red mist to survive. If they let such a dangerous enemy wander the town's outskirts, the risks would only grow. Leaf seemed momentarily persuaded by her words, falling silent. Maisie chirped softly by Lightning's side, and Lightning chuckled, "I got that." "What did Maisie say?" Leaf asked. Lightning translated with a smirk. Saying Maisie said she wants to shred their heads with her claws, flatten them with her wings, then roast them over a fire to see if they're edible. But Maisie only chirped twice, Leaf pointed out. Sensing the demons were about 300 meters away. Leaf hesitated, likely because the past encounters with the demons had left deep scars in her memory. But now wasn't the time to dwell. They planned for Leaf to first entangle the demons with vines, after which Lightning and Maisie would launch an aerial assault. After a brief search, Maisie transformed into a hawk, spotting the prey. Under her hawk-eyed gaze, even a rabbit dashing through the snow couldn't elude her pursuit. One target each, Lightning proposed. When they are halfway in their dive, Maisie will then transform into the giant winged beast. Lightning exhaled a frosty breath, gripping her pistol tightly as she began her descent. The biting wind whipped past her face, making her ears sting. She recalled the shooting techniques Nightingale taught her. The iron gauntlet worn by the enemy was likely embedded with electric magic stones. Their effective range was about 5 meters, similar to witches. Thus, shooting from 7 to 8 meters was optimal. The enemy's figures became clearer. Suddenly, one demon halted, lifting its head to roar at them. Simultaneously, countless vines sprouted, coiling around the demon's legs and climbing upwards, ensnaring the demons tightly. A flash of white light enveloped Maisie, and in an instant, she transformed into a massive beast, letting out a resonant cry as she dove. Gritting her teeth, Lightning sped up. She took a sharp turn and pointed her gun at one of the demons. As one demon broke free, Lightning's shot struck its chest. The demon charged at her, she fired 3 more shots, but she missed. Calming her breath, she took another shot. A red mist exploded behind the demon. The bullet had not only pierced its body but also shattered the gas tank on its back. With a painful wail, the demon quickly fell to the ground. Maisie's situation, however, was far worse. A bolt of lightning from another demon struck Maisie directly, sending sparks flying. Her screeching turned into a scream of agony. Her wings curled up, and she crashed heavily onto the demon below, sending up a wave of snow. The impact was so fierce that Lightning felt the ground tremble beneath her. Perhaps the collision had shattered the gas tank on the demon's body because a red mist began to spill from beneath the giant bird, making the young girl's heart skip a beat. Leaf reacted immediately. Dozens of vines combined into one and lifted Maisie off the demon. The giant bird rolled a couple of times in the snow before lying still. Lightning felt anxious and dashed towards Maisie, cradling her massive head and shaking it gently. Maisie opened her eyes, seemingly unable to maintain her magical form any longer, reverting to her original form. Lightning checked her over, and after ensuring she was unharmed, let out a sigh of relief. She was glad that Maisie was okay. It seemed that while in her flying beast form, Maisie couldn't be harmed by the red mist. Moreover, her resilience increased when she grew larger. The electric shock had merely knocked her out temporarily, and the demon had cushioned her fall. It looked terrifying at first, but she hadn't sustained much damage. Leaf appeared from a nearby tree trunk and inspected the lifeless bodies of the 2 demons. They decided to bring back the corpses for the Highness to handle. Roland was taken aback when he heard the news. Without taking the time to ask for details, he rushed with Leaf to the castle's back garden. There, he saw Lightning unloading the bodies of 2 demons from Maisie's back. Just as Roland was about to ask if anyone was injured, the young girl jumped down, darting straight into his arms, proudly announcing they had defeated the demons. She tilted her head upwards, her eyes gleaming with a "praise me" look. If she had a tail, it would undoubtedly be wagging. Roland exhaled deeply. Thank goodness that none of them were injured. Seeing lightning like this, he couldn't very well yell at her for not reporting back after encountering the demons. He decided to set that issue aside for now and began asking about the details of the event. Listening to their back and forth recounting, he was finally able to grasp the gist of what had happened. The battle might have looked easy, but it carried significant risks. If Maisie hadn't miraculously withstood the bolt of lightning unscathed, or if the demon had managed to break free from Leaf's binding, the outcome could have been unimaginable. Nightingale couldn't help but appear and reprimand them for taking such risks. But we won, Lightning pouted in response. Nightingale retorted without hesitation, saying it was mere luck. Had Maisie been severely hurt by the electric strike, things would have gone very badly. She then turned to Maisie, saying that she should have reported back, instead of frolicking with Lightning. Make such a mistake again, and she can forget about getting any dried fish treats from Nightingale. With that, Maisie lowered her head in guilt. Truly deserving of her title as the strongest witch in the border town, Roland thought to himself with an approving glance at Nightingale. Looking at the two bodies in the back garden, Agatha wore a somber expression, warning everyone not to underestimate these demons. Roland closely inspected the two demon corpses. Their frames were massive, both standing over 2 meters tall. The variance in their blood color made sense. Human blood is red because it's rich in oxygen-transporting hemoglobin. These creatures might not even need to breathe oxygen, so any blood color wouldn't be surprising. What puzzled Roland, however, was the fact that even though the two demons resembled humans so closely, they seemed to lack certain parts. Roland wondered how the demons reproduce. Roland curiously asked Agatha if the demons had genders. Agatha replied, "There's no concept of gender among them, and how they reproduce remains an enigma." Over the hundreds of years of battling the demons, many had noticed an intriguing phenomenon: the evolution of these creatures. Some demons, previously gravely wounded by witches, would reappear on the battlefield in a different form. Yet from the remnants of their old wounds, it was evident they were the same demons. This suggested that the higher-ranked demons weren't born that way but evolved through countless battles. Once their evolution was complete, even their physical form would change. With the advancements in demonic stone technology already being a major concern, the enemy's ability to evolve made it no surprise they had dealt severe blows to humanity in the two divine wars. Crouching down, Roland examined their clothes and belongings. Thankfully, these items didn't seem technologically advanced, some even appeared rather outdated. Among the items, Roland came across a stone tablet. "It's their way of recording information," Agatha explained, "but they've never managed to understand the writing." The remaining magic stones were standard gear for scout demons. A dull ache began to throb at the base of Roland's skull. He thought the demons were aware of the existence of the town, and now sending scouts over. Agatha shook her head, saying if they were truly intent on scouting human settlements, their movements wouldn't be so careless. For effective reconnaissance, they would send 2 to 3 squads, usually accompanied by demonic beasts as mounts, and they wouldn't stray far from each other, at least within the support range of their spear-throwing fiends. Ashes chimed in. Could it be that the demons deemed border towns too insignificant, so they casually sent just 2 of their kind? Agatha pondered the suggestion and eventually rejected it. During the Federation era, even the smallest of border towns would have a witch stationed for protection. The demons can't possibly be aware of the human world's changes over these past 4 centuries. Hence, their scouting should still be based on the tactics from the Second Divine War. Roland felt a weight lift from his chest. Agatha believed the demons might not even be aware of a human settlement here. They might just be surveying the surroundings of their camp, expecting to encounter primarily demonic beasts. That's probably why they didn't bring the magic stones or spears and chose the more convenient lightning stones instead. However, when he learned of the nearby demonic camp, a fresh wave of headache washed over Roland. Having the enemy set up a base right at one's doorstep was vexing. How are they supposed to live their days peacefully now, he mused. Tilly cast a concerned glance at Roland. Roland knew he needed to locate the camp and eliminate the threat. The praise from Ashes says this is the decision a good lord would make. They will support Roland wholeheartedly. Entrusting the task of scouting to Lightning and Maisie, Roland instructed them with emphasis: under no circumstances should they engage the demons on their own. Their safety is the most important. After a pause, he added, if they successfully locate the camp, there will be an ice cream sandwich for dessert every day for the next week. Salivating at the thought, both promised to accomplish the mission. Days later, not far from Border Town, a site resembling a demonic camp was discovered. A deep cave mirrored the one previously found at Agatha's experimental tower site. To ascertain the situation, Roland consulted Sylvie and Soraya. Upon viewing the sketches, Roland was taken aback. Another cavern? Could there be another massive creature inside? If the previous one devoured the experimental tower, he wondered if this one swallowed the demon camp? He pondered if he had missed crucial information linking the two incidents. To Roland's unease, Sylvie pointed out that the underground tunnels were directed towards the snowy mountain, aligning perfectly with the direction of the cave found in the hidden forest. All signs led to one location, the Grey Castle, specifically beneath the palace. Inside the palace, Timothy sat languidly on the throne, his right hand propping up his face, displaying slight impatience as he observed an assassin demonstrating his skills. Perhaps Timothy's generosity has made these jesters overconfident. A man in a black hat proclaimed, should the traitor Roland ever cross his path, he will easily take Roland out. Casting a fleeting glance in front of the man, Timothy noticed 4 daggers impeccably lodged into a barrel not far from him. Timothy coldly watched the man in the black hat boasting about his skills. Without much of a word, he signaled to one of his knights. The man in the hat started to panic, inquiring about Timothy's intentions. Defeat the knight, and his reward shall be granted, Timothy declared. A scream soon filled the hall, revealing the outcome. Timothy, without casting another glance at the fallen assassin, shifted his attention to the status of the new weapon made from the snow powder. An official reported the not-so-promising progress, revealing that the weapons made were nowhere near as powerful as rumored. Only a few could penetrate a knight's armor from within 10 steps, and hitting a target beyond 50 steps was almost impossible. Timothy clenched his fist in frustration. Their manufacturing rate was low and the quality was unreliable. Many of their metal tubes had exploded, causing the soldiers to distrust the new weapon. He couldn't fathom how Roland, in a town much poorer than the royal capital, managed to produce hundreds in just one winter. To Timothy, it could only be the aid of the demons. A minister interrupted his thoughts, announcing the arrival of envoys from the Kingdom of Dawn. Since the palace was bombed, Timothy had to receive guests in his study. To invite the foreign envoys into a basement would be a grave insult. As Timothy entered his study, 2 young envoys, one male and one female, with strikingly similar features, awaited him. After formal greetings, Timothy assumed they were there to beg for resources or food. But the male envoy corrected him, they are not here to seek aid, but to address a greater threat. Taken aback, Timothy inquired, what threat? The young woman continued, the church has occupied 2 kingdoms. Numerous refugees are flooding into their borders. Their king believes the church's ambition does not end there. Both Grey Castle and the Kingdom of Dawn are in grave danger. Their king wishes to ally with Grey Castle to stand against the church. As she finished, they presented an agreement, a potential treaty for mutual defense. The gravity of the situation was undeniable. The world was changing, and alliances were becoming more vital than ever. Taking out a map. The young male envoy spread it out in front of Timothy. If the church launches an attack from the Holy City against either the Kingdom of Dawn or Grey Castle, then the other kingdom will lead their forces northward to lay siege to the Hermes Holy City. This move will halt the church's advance, leaving them vulnerable at both ends. Timothy still relies on the church for supplies of the pills. With this agreement, the chances of obtaining pills from the church were dimming. Without the pills, how can they expel Roland from the western regions? However, the church was an entity they had to be wary of. It would be ideal to purchase enough pills and unify the entirety of Grey Castle before forming an alliance with the Kingdom of Dawn. Timothy mentioned that he needed to consult with his ministers. He then asked, how much do they know about the situation in Everwinter and the Wolfheart Kingdom? He wondered if all the information came from the mouths of refugees. The envoy's knowledge was limited, especially when asked about Garcia and her black sail fleet. The female envoy reported that Garcia and the king of Wolfheart had fled the capital and met their end during a chaotic battle, yet no bodies were found. Timothy exhaled, feeling a slight regret, but this was one of the few pieces of good news they'd received since winter began. He hoped the intel was accurate. Watching the envoy depart, a smirk crossed Timothy's lips. He thought to himself, saying this is the fate of traitors. And he claims that Roland will end up just like them. Meanwhile, in the fjord, by the time the last house was built, the horizon was already turning a dusky hue. A man clapped his hands in delight, gazing at the newly built structures. Lien adjusted her scarf to cover her ears, enveloping them in the soft warmth of cotton wool. She had picked up this warming technique from the western regions and introduced it to Slumbering Isle to keep the residents warm. The man inquired about the cost if he were to hire her long-term, hoping to have Lien develop other areas of his territory. He was keen to find out how much it would take to persuade Tilly to let Lien go. Lien had no intentions of leaving, but the man interjected, painting a picture of a better life elsewhere, where she could stay with him, enjoying fine wine and delicacies from the 4 great kingdoms, and always having attendants by her side wherever she went. Lien frowned, recognizing this all-too-familiar attitude. They claimed it was employment, but in reality, it felt almost like she was being bought. Just as she was about to retort, Breeze pulled her hand. Standing between them, Breeze obstructed the man. The man's tone shifted irritably. He claimed that the sleeping curse promised to grant any request. Suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder. The man turned to look and was taken aback. It was Thunder. Seeing Thunder, the man changed his demeanor, muttered a thanks, and hurriedly left. Lien sighed in relief and expressed her gratitude to Thunder. Thunder had just finished an adventure and happened to be passing by. Speaking of his adventure, his eyes lit up with enthusiasm. For the first time, he saw the sea with completely different heights. It was as if the ships were flying towards the towering walls of waves without falling into the deep sea. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he'd never believe such bizarre sights existed in this world. In the evening, the witches gathered. They snuggled together on the warm heated bed, sharing tales of their experiences in the border town. The group would chat deep into the night, answering their curious and envious questions. When the conversation turned to the Western Territory and Prince Roland, the atmosphere was jubilant. Amid the overlapping chatter, a thought uncontrollably popped into Lien's mind. What if it was Prince Roland who wished to employ her long-term, instead of the fat merchant? Would she have accepted? Thinking about it, she realized that if it were Roland, she wouldn't be able to refuse. How embarrassing. Lien nestled deeper into her blanket, glancing around. Thankfully, the lamp was already extinguished, so nobody could see how red her face was. She wondered when would Lady Tilly finally accept Prince Roland. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they could be together forever in the border town? Lien hugged her scarf tighter. That way, both she and the other witches could happily live in the border town. Back in border town, Manhwa stretched and yawned as she rose from her bed. Reluctantly leaving the warmth of her blankets, she slipped into her thick winter coat and made her way out of the bedroom. There, she found Aunt Ada tidying up the living room. Munching on a piece of bread, she greeted her, to which Aunt Ada responded with a warm smile. Soon after, Manhwa stepped outside, greeted by a gentle snowfall. Every morning, she followed the same routine, leaving her house to go to the medical center. If there were injured people, she would help them. Otherwise, she would practice her skills on injured animals. Waiting at the medical center could sometimes be dull, but she persisted for the sake of treating the wounded as quickly as possible. Another thing that kept her going was the smiles and warmth of the townsfolk. Everyone would greet Manhwa, often inviting her for meals. As she walked, she was continuously showered with greetings. This contrasted sharply with a year ago, making it seem like two different worlds. Her sisters often said that she had become the most popular witch in the border town, even surpassing Anna. But Manhwa didn't care about popularity. She simply cherished her life in the border town. Every townsfolk she had treated would greet her warmly, filling her heart with a sense of accomplishment. Upon reaching the medical center, the soldiers by the door saluted her with respect. Manhwa, in her typical energetic manner, ran up to the second floor. But as she opened the door, she found Rem, Hummingbird, and Lily lying listlessly by the table. Seeing her, they immediately stood up to greet her. Manhwa was overjoyed to have her friends around. Rem brought a deck of playing cards, mentioning she learned a new game from Andrea. Lily chided her, suggesting if Rem put the same effort into learning the prince's new knowledge, she wouldn't be lagging behind. Manhwa chuckled at the scene, feeling like she was back in Professor Carl's academy, living those carefree days. By evening, everyone had returned home. Rem, drying her hair, leaned close to Lily, who was seated by a desk. Rem admitted her envy of Manhwa. Without even turning her head, Lily just nodded. Rem had mentioned how both the soldiers and townsfolk deeply respected Manhwa. Rem too yearned for such regard. Lily explained that it was because over half of the people living in the town had received Manhwa's help. Rem wanted the same. Then learn from Manhwa, Lily advised. Proactively help the townsfolk or evolve her own abilities. By bedtime, Rem still had these thoughts weighing heavily on her mind. Although she knew that what Lily said was true, she couldn't shake the feeling of being useless within the witches' union. She didn't want to continue feeling this way and certainly didn't want to take this opportunity for granted. After all, it had taken her so long to find a place where she truly felt at ease. Spending her days aimlessly made her feel restless. During the night, she hardly slept. The next day, with dark circles under her eyes, Rem knocked on Roland's office door. Roland, seeing her, assumed Rem had recently been bullied. She shook her head, leaning over his desk. She reminded him that Roland once said she had great potential, yet her abilities hadn't evolved. Roland couldn't help but chuckle. He had been pondering the same issue. Agatha mentioned that aside from constant practice, another way to evolve one's skills was through sudden insight. Wanting to assist Rem, he posed a question about her understanding of magnetism. After hearing her textbook response, Roland realized that while she could recite the concept, she didn't genuinely understand it. He drew a diagram and started explaining. Rem's eyes widened as she tried to follow, but she was lost. Seeing her confusion, Roland reassured her. He told her it was all right if she didn't understand right away. He asked her to follow a specific method of practice, if possible, try to change the direction of magnetic field lines, like switching from the left hand to the right. If she can get a hang of this method, Roland said, he will then prepare a small toy for Rem as a gift. Once Rem masters this technique, Rem will naturally evolve her ability.